Dats. Welcome to the podcast you've been waiting for. Great perspective and exclusive interviews.
It's a hard job for those guys because it's happening fast.
The kind of Saints insight and fun commentary you won't get anywhere else.
We've got plenty of technology to speed things up.
It's time to kick off your Been There, Done That Saints podcast, where we hand it off to our host, Mike Nabors, and Super Bowl winning linebacker, Scott Shanle.
Proud of these guys.
You grew up a football fan on Thanksgiving when everybody's watching. To have a game like this, what does that mean?
Well, look, I love that I can come in and help our team win football games, but certainly being able to do it on Thanksgiving night, knowing that, my family's back at home watching the game and friends and family, everyone's gathered. I certainly remember having turkey, having all the food, and then sitting down and having some pies. I watched Thursday Night Football on Thanksgiving.
Taysom. The Taysom Turkey Day trifecta against the Atlanta Falcons. Welcome to another Been There, Done That podcast. I am Mike Nabors. I got to bring in the crew. I'm sorry we took Thanksgiving week off. We'll admit it. It got a little crazy with the short week. I wanted to, frankly, not rush it, and we were busy traveling, getting ready for the game. Had a lot of TV. I'm making a lot of excuses here, aren't I, guys?
we let people eat and enjoy their meal, enjoy some football.
Thank you, Scott Shanle. Justin, you have a good excuse for us why we didn't have a podcast last week?
I think it's a good excuse. We obviously couldn't do it. If we could, we wouldn't be trying to come up with something. So,
yeah, you Saints fans, I know you're busy. Yeah, like Shanle said, we wanted to have you have more time with your family. And now that we're back in the regular, regime of getting ready for Christmas and football season, well, I guess we wanted to wait till they clinch the division title too. I'll throw that in there as well. Shanle, here's my favorite stat on the Saints after beating the Atlanta Falcons. They're the 15th team to clinch in Week 13 or earlier since realignment back in 2002. 15th team. Only one of those teams, and you can't count the Saints this year, of one of those previous 14 teams won a Super Bowl, and that would be your team in 2009.
Wow.
How about that?
Bringing the interesting stats this week. You had an extra week to prepare.
Yes. Yeah. I think it's interesting, though, that, the NFC South is so topsy-turvy for years. I mean, you saw when you played, a lot of times the last place team would win the division the next season around. The fact that the Saints, have won it 3 straight years is pretty incredible.
Yeah, well, yeah, you're right. To win any division in football, especially the NFC South, because it always went back and forth, is really impressive. I just think it speaks volumes about the consistency and the stability of the Saints organization the past 3 years. You look at 2017 and 2018, I thought the Saints were good enough to be the best team in the NFL and win a Super Bowl. And these other teams are constantly scratching and clawing, trying to find a way to overcome the Saints. And they either don't have the quarterback to do it. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers didn't have the head coach to do it. Now Carolina's going to have a new head coach. So these other 3 teams in the division are constantly trying to find a way to overcome the Saints' stability.
Yeah, you heard Taysom Hill at the beginning. We mentioned TNT when Brees went down was Teddy and Taysom. I think it was Taysom and Turkey against the Atlanta Falcons. That's the moniker because he took over that game. Receiving touchdown, rushing touchdown, a block punt. We're going to have our one-on-one that we have on Cox Sports Television with Taysom Hill a little bit later in the podcast. Interviews you won't get anywhere else. But Shanle, I was impressed. We'll get to the things we weren't impressed with in that game, but I was impressed with the vibe of this team afterwards. Yeah, it was a hat and T-shirt game. They won the division, but you got to love what it said on the T-shirt. The South is not enough. As a former player, you had to appreciate that.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty bold to have that on a T-shirt because, like you said, 3-time conference or division champions is very rare, and I think it just speaks volumes about this team. The way they've the last couple of years not finished where they wanted to finish. Every year you sit down in that meeting room, the 3 main goals are: first, to win your division; second, to get a first-round bye in the playoffs; third is to win a Super Bowl. So they've marked one of those 3 goals off their list. They're not happy with it. It's old news to them. They've already done it the past 2 years. So I thought it made quite a statement with that on the T-shirt when I saw that as well.
Okay, you've also seen Sean Payton at practice. How do you think practice was this week, especially for the special teams guys with the onside kick debacle at the end of that game?
Oh, it was – you saw the look on his face in the post-game press conferences. They won the game. They won the division. But you saw a look of concern and frustration on his face, and rightfully so. Nobody's recovering onside kicks in the NFL except for the teams that are facing the Saints. You saw the Bears do it. You saw the Falcons do it 3 times. And it just comes down to fundamentals. And if you're in the front line, you block the guy, the receiver, whether it's Kamara or Thomas, you're recovering the ball. And a couple of times the frontline guys didn't know whether to recover or block. Just do your job. Everything you work on Saturday morning walkthroughs, when it comes game time, you just do your job and trust the coaches that they have you lined up and doing your proper technique is going to work.
I did a lot of radio this week, and people are asking me, Kamara and Thomas look like guys out there. Hey, I don't want to get hurt. I don't want to get in there and get some silly injury on something like this. Were you surprised that they're putting those guys out there? I mean, I know they're the best athletes on the team, but should they kind of reshuffle the deck a little bit?
I think you can take a look at that. I would rather have a big wide receiver out there than Alvin Kamara. I know he has really good hands, but I always remember our guy doing it was Marcus Colston. Big bodied receiver, can go up if the ball bounces, he can high point it. So obviously Michael Thomas is the ideal candidate to do that, but he's also your best player on the team, the best wide receiver in the NFL. I think there's got to be another big bodied wide receiver who you can put in that role to recover onside kicks.
All right, the other bone of contention are these darn penalties. Only 2 penalties against the Arizona Cardinals. But how about this? And yeah, I do my homework for this podcast. Since the Arizona Cardinals win in the last 4 games, guys, the Saints have 42 penalties in the last 4 games. You can't win a lot of football games, but you know what, Shanle? They've only lost one of those games. It shows to me how good this football team could be if they clean stuff up.
Yeah, well, the reason they've overcome those is first and foremost, they're not turning the ball over on offense. If you have all those penalties and you turn the ball over on offense, you're not going to win games in the NFL. Couple that with the defense is still playing some really good football and getting takeaways, you're able to overcome those penalties. When you're playing good teams like they're going to play here this weekend in San Fran and even on the road in Tennessee, those penalties will get you beat, even if you take care of the football. So I know we talk about penalties. We do it on CST when we talk about pregame, postgame shows, how many penalties, and Saints fans roll their eyes, just like I do, because there's a lot of penalties that are garbage penalties that you're looking at it like, man, here we go again. Saints are getting screwed. But there are some legitimate penalties. The holding penalties are happening way too frequently. The hands to the face penalties are way too frequent. Those are things you can control.
Speaking of the offensive line, I thought they did a great job without Andres Pete and Teron Armstead in that game. Especially, you combine that with Sean Payton's play calling. We'll get to Taysom Hill in just a second. But that run play with Taysom Hill, the line did a great job of opening holes. The perfect call. I mean, the offense just was in sync on that play all across the board.
I thought the offense did a nice job, especially on a short week, and you're the traveling team. The hardest part about playing these Thursday night games, your body's not rested up, but when you're the traveling team, that's a huge disadvantage. And I thought the Saints play with more energy, more focus than the Atlanta Falcons, who probably have their bags packed up ready for the offseason anyway. They had their little 2-game stretch, but the Saints were out to get back on track, and I thought they played with great energy. And I don't think it's a coincidence they played with more energy because Taysom Hill made some plays. Every time Taysom Hill makes plays, he's the spark plug of the team. Offense and special teams, this team seems to be ignited by him. And I'm looking for a lot more Taysom Hill this weekend against San Fran. If anybody saw Lamar Jackson, San Fran still hasn't covered the read option. So I'm looking for Taysom Hill to have a big part of this weekend's game.
Why do you think we thought we'd see more Taysom Hill immediately when Brees came back? Because obviously you're not going to see much of him with Bridgewater playing. Why don't you think he was a big part of the game plan before Atlanta the last couple of weeks?
Yeah, we talked about he wasn't a big part of it when Teddy was playing because obviously he's the backup quarterback. I just think when I look at it, when Drew gets back from an injury, he's missed 6 games. I think Coach Payton wanted to get this offense back in sync, get Drew back in rhythm. And then you also have to remember they're integrating Alvin Kamara off an injury, getting him back in sync, getting him back in rhythm. And I just don't think it was time to put Taysom on the hill or Taysom on the field for 10 to 15 plays because you're trying to get those guys integrated back. But he obviously is a game changer, and I think he'll have a big role this weekend.
All right, let's get to Taysom Hill because he is really the flavor of the week. They're the spark plug for the New Orleans Saints. We'll get to the defense, too. The defense had a lot of great moments against those Atlanta Falcons. But Taysom Hill sets the tone just like he did against the Bucs last year. He turned the game around against the Bucs in Tampa last year, blocking that punt. Really was a momentum switch. But he set the tone early against the Falcons, blocking that punt. I asked him, did he get a reward for that when the offense got the ball?
Did it just kind of work out that you get a touchdown, or Coach Payton said, you know what, you blocked the punt, I'm going to get you in the end zone now?
Well, look, I knew Coach liked that play. I think there was a joke, this week on the Thursday night game, short week, that may have been the most rep play in practice.
Really?
And so I knew at some point it was going to get called, but maybe he threw me a bone. I'm not sure.
Shanle, did he throw him a bone there? What do you think?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. He probably had that play dialed up on his play sheet. He was going to run at some point in the game, but no better time than to reward a guy who just made a game-changing play. So I think he probably had it on his play sheet, but he dialed it up maybe earlier than he thought.
I wanted to ask Payton that in the post-game press conference. I was outside the locker room. I couldn't make it. I don't know if Payton would have admitted that. Sometimes Payton will surprise you in the things that he will reveal. You never know with him. He's kind of interesting that way. Well, speaking of Taysom Hill, I can only imagine how it is to be an NFL player preparing for a game. But he has to prepare for a lot of things, and he never really knows. I asked him about his preparation week to week, and here's what he said.
And you never quite know, does that make it interesting? Is it nerve-wracking? I mean, how is it to be Taysom Hill on this football team in this offense?
Look, I can tell you the role has certainly evolved. And I think early in my career, there was a certain level of pressure because I knew that if it didn't go well, I didn't know what the next time my number was going to get called. But I feel like at this point, man, it's so fun. It's so exciting for me to be able to go in and do various things to help our team win. So I really look forward to it every day, looking at the call sheet to see what I'm going to be doing.
I just wonder his mindset, Shanle, because he wants to be a quarterback, but he is reveling and taking advantage of everything the Swiss Army knife gets. So, I'm sure long term he wants to play quarterback, but it seems like he's really enjoying this role right now.
Yeah, well, I think he has to enjoy this role because it's the situation he's put in with a Hall of Fame quarterback and a quarterback who the Saints have basically said he's the future of the franchise. What is intriguing to me is we all enjoy this, seeing Taysom, what he's doing. I believe he probably wants to be a franchise quarterback. It's going to be interesting to me this offseason if any other team feels like he's a franchise quarterback because He is 30 years old. He's going to be a restricted free agent. The Saints are going to tender him. They'll probably tender him with a first-round pick. Is any team going to give up a first-round pick for a franchise quarterback at 30 years old? I don't know. I think Taysom Hill may end up being in this role again next year with the Saints.
Yeah, it's funny. You took the words out of my mouth because I wanted to ask you about that. It would be interesting to see the kind of market value he has. And Sean Payton's definitely improved that over the last couple of months. You know what I was kind of wondering, and this may, I don't know, rile some people listening to this podcast. If you're Tim Tebow and you're home with the family and you're enjoying your pumpkin pie and your turkey or your ham, you're kind of on your recliner and you're thinking, you know what? I may not be that kind of athlete, but if I would have accepted that role, I'd be playing on Sundays right now or Thursdays or Mondays.
Yeah, I mean, that's the risk you take. The NFL, it'll move on with or without you. And as a player, you have to decide if you want to play football or not, even if it means playing something you don't want to do. There were times I wanted to play weak side linebacker late in my career, and they moved me to strong side linebacker. There were times I wanted to play outside when I was in a 3-4 defense, but they had me playing inside. If you want to play football, you've got to do what the team needs you to do. And in that regard, I think Tim Tebow probably could have been the Taysom Hill a few years ago. He's not as explosive or as fast as Taysom, which it would have been interesting. But I say with Tim Tebow, he had his opportunity in Denver. Peyton Manning came along, booted him out of that. If he couldn't make it in Chip Kelly's offense in Philly, there's probably no place for him better in the NFL to make it. And I think that was probably his final stop as far as proving he could play quarterback.
Yeah, I agree. He wouldn't return kicks. He wouldn't do a lot of the athletic stuff, but I think he could be a special teams guy. He could be more of a tight end, H-back. It would be a hybrid of what Sean Payton's doing with Taysom Hill. All right, I love getting Shanle, before we get to the Niners and more likely in predictions and all that, I love getting Shanle fired up about the Falcons. We should almost bring in a jingle for that. Shanle is a mild-mannered guy. He's a friend of mine, and I've known him for a while. But when you mention the Atlanta Falcons, it just kind of riles him up a little bit. So, Shanle, how much did you love that Shy Tuttle stiff arm of Matt Ryan? Did you enjoy that?
Oh, man, I loved it. I tell you what, I was watching when we did the highlights on CST. Victor Howe will tell you how much I loved it. I just wanted us to keep replaying it over and over again. And the greatest part about it is I knew – and I do know that is going to live on for infamy. That is what is great about the internet. It's forever. Every time the Saints and the Falcons play twice a year, you'll see Matt Ryan getting stiffed arm under the turf. So I love that play. It'll live on forever. Shy Tuttle, he's got his place in the Falcons-Saints rival in the history books for sure.
And really, is there a better football name than Shy Tuttle? Really? Is there? The other stat that I like too, and I love getting Shanle going, especially we talk defensive stats. Cam Jordan has now sacked Matt Ryan 18 times. Since they started the sack stat in 1982, no player has ever sacked one quarterback more than Cam Jordan has sacked Matt Ryan. How about that?
That's an impressive stat, and I think Atlanta's been trying to find some a left tackle and a right tackle to block Cam Jordan for the past how many years? 8-9 years, and they still haven't done it. But I think it also speaks to the longevity of both players. Cam being a franchise cornerstone for the Saints, Matt Ryan being a cornerstone for the Falcons. But that is an impressive stat.
All right, so we talked about the good and the bad. I think this Saints team, if they don't make mistakes, they may be the best team in football right now, which brings us to the San Francisco 49ers, who are one of the best teams in football. And we'll get to predictions in just a second. But what are your real keys to this game as you look at it?
Well, the keys are going to be it's huge playing at home and the crowd noise being able to affect that San Francisco offense. But more so, the San Francisco defensive line is the real deal. And they're not going to have the crowd noise behind them to give them a jump on the ball. I think the Saints have to get rid of the ball. They have to throw the ball because this San Francisco secondary and linebacker core, they're not world beaters. They're a really good defense. They're fast. They fly around, but they are the weakness of the defense. And I don't think they've seen a quarterback or a passing game like the Saints. Saints continue to throw the ball, but you got to get rid of it quick routes to the tight end and Michael. I think will give the San Francisco defense fits.
Advantage Michael Thomas over Richard Williams. What am I saying? Richard Williams.
Oh, Sherman.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sherman. He's a good corner. He's a big corner, but he's not quick enough to guard Michael. And he's coming off an injury. I think he got banged up in the Ravens game. This San Francisco team, they are impressive. I have to admit, I've watched them a few times, especially recently. They're physical. They're fast. I'll tell you the player. If you want just a key player besides Michael Thomas or Drew, Alvin Kamara needs to step up and return to his old self. I think unless he steps up and starts to have some of those smooth gliding runs like we've seen, breaking a lot of tackles, this Saints offense has been struggling lately. They need him to get back to playing the way he was playing before he got injured.
Do you think Kamara hasn't looked the same since he's been back, but the offensive line hasn't been the same either? Does that kind of go hand in hand a little bit, or?
Well, I'm going to say no because Latavius Murray has been running the ball just fine in between the tackles. He's kind of taken on the in-between tackle runner. My concern with Alvin is he's getting the same pass plays, the pass routes. He's not winning one-on-one. Linebackers are a little bit closer to him. He's not breaking tackles in space, and that's been the strength of his game is getting him in space and letting him maneuver on linebackers. And you just haven't seen that same burst from him the past few weeks.
Yeah, we saw uncharacteristic drops for the Saints last week, and I think if that's not going to continue. I think they'll get better that way. But if they can improve in the penalty area, and they've been pretty good with turnovers, I think they have a real good shot to win this football game. We'll get the predictions in just a second. Justin, you know what time it is, though. Richard Williams, I don't know what that was, but we'll get to more likely here. 3 hypotheticals about the New Orleans Saints. Sometimes we step outside the lines a little bit too. Justin will go first so he doesn't cheat off Shanley's paper. And I know the questions, so I have the ultimate advantage. So I'm going to ask you guys this. It's really remarkable to me the moves the Saints have made in terms of the draft, in terms of free agents. Hasn't always been that way in the Sean Payton, Mickey Loomis era. They've had some free agent duds. They've had some good free agents, though. More likely, who's the best free agent of the Sean Payton, Mickey Loomis, Drew Brees era? Is it Demario Davis or is it Jabari Greer?
I'm surprised you only have 2 this time instead of 3. Normally you at least have 3.
I just feel like those are the top 2 in my eyes.
No, you're right.
A lot of people think Vilma, but that was a trade. So sometimes people think Vilma was a free agent a lot of the time. But
that was a trade, yeah.
I was guilty of that up until not long ago when you reminded me. I think Jabari Greer was great. How long did he play? Was it 3 years, 4 years?
I think he played about 5-6 years. He was hurt.
5, 6?
Yeah, I think isn't that right? He played about 5 years. I have to look that up, but yeah.
I believe Jabari came in 2008 and probably left about 12 or 13.
That's about right, yeah.
I remember.
I'm gonna have a write-in on this one. Do you want me to throw it out there right now so Justin can choose between it?
I love going off the board. Yes.
Okay, I'm just going to throw the name out there. It's kind of taboo, but he was a huge part of what we got done. It's Darren Sharper.
Okay, yeah, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, Darren Sharper was huge at 2009 year with all the turnovers. I still think I'm going to stick with my original pick. I think Demario Davis has been a huge pickup. And in a lot of ways, it reminds me of when we got Vilma and the immediate impact he had at 2009 year. We went to the Super Bowl. Demario is just amazing. He's all over the field. He's making tackles in the backfield. He's just, I think Jabari Greer was a big impact. And to an extent, yes, also Darren Sharper. But I think the linebacking core has been much improved since Demario came in. I think it's one of the reasons why the last couple of years the defense has stepped up in a huge way as well.
Yeah, once again, we're money in the research department. Jabari Greer, a New Orleans Saint for 5 years, came in, played the 09 season, was his first. I guess he came in 08. 09 was his first, and his last year was 2013. So he was obviously the big reason the Saints were successful. You could point to a lot of reasons, but Jabari Greer was one of them. But I love going off the board. Shanle, you threw Darren Sharper on there. What say you about this best free agent in the Sean Payton era?
Was that the question? Was that the way it was posed?
Of those three guys, yes.
Best free?
Yeah, of those three guys, yes.
Oh, I was going to say best free agent. I might say Drew Brees.
Oh, you would throw him in there too? Oh, okay. Yeah.
Let's see. I'm going to go. Well, maybe. He's all right. I'm going to go. Nobody's been beating the drum for Demario Davis more than I have the past couple weeks. I think this guy has been snubbed from the Pro Bowl last year. And again, I saw the voting this week that he's not even a top vote getter for linebackers. It's absolutely insane. He's one of the best linebackers in the NFL. I don't know what more he has to do. And I hope players, when they sit down and vote, actually give Demario the respect he deserves. He should be in the Pro Bowl. He's one of the best linebackers in the NFL. But I'm going to go with Darren Sharper. Darren, if anybody remembers his year in 09, let me just remind you, there were some games early in the season that he had interceptions, pick sixes. I think the Jets, the Giants, the Eagles. I think he started with a pick six in most of the first 6 games. If we lost maybe 1 or 2 of those games without the way he played, we don't get the home seed. I don't think we win the Super Bowl. So I think Darren Sharper was a huge reason we won the Super Bowl. His 1 year in 09, all the takeaways he had were a huge part of us getting the number 1 seed. So I'm going to have to go with Sharper.
Wow, that's really good stuff. You know, I'm going to go Jabari Greer because, as you know, Shanle, very well, more than me, more than most. The secondary was such an Achilles heel. They were always trying to find, they had Jason David and even the safeties they were having problems with, like Kevin Case-Faharn. But when Jabari Greer came in and when Tracy Porter was healthy, it really solidified that defense. And, yeah, you brought Sharper in. It was the whole package with all of them together. But I thought Jabari Greer also, when he was injured, you really saw, a difference in that secondary as well. I mean, talk about the difference when Jabari went down at a pivotal point when you guys were really rolling as a defense after the Super Bowl. What was the difference without him on that defense?
Well, you hit on a key point. When we fixed our secondary, it changed everything on our team. And it was no coincidence that you look at the past couple of years, the Saints fixed the secondary, Marshawn Lattimore, and trade for Eli Apple, he's not been playing great lately. He's had a lot of penalties, but he's been a big upgrade over Crawley. Marcus Williams has been playing pretty good. This Saints team goes as the secondary goes, and a lot of it is because of the defensive coordinators they have now and the defense coordinator we had then. A lot of man-to-man coverage. You have to have corners who are athletic. So when we got Jabari, Tracy Porter was healthy his second year in the league. Sharper was one of the best ball-hawking safeties in the league, and then Roman Harper fit into our scheme perfectly, much like Jamal Adams in the Jet scheme now. He went to the Pro Bowl that year. Everything just came together perfect based on the type of defense we ran. And if you didn't have secondary members who could play, we weren't in a lot of soft zone where we could protect bad defensive backs. We were aggressive, and that's why we were able to do what we did, and that's why the Saints defense is playing the way they are now, because they have great secondary players.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's the kind of insight you get on this podcast. And also, Shanle keeps me straight. I should readjust the question. Yeah, besides Drew Brees, who's the best free agent in Saints history? Okay, number 2, Cam Jordan. We're going to bring him back. Cam Jordan, to me, is just amazing what he's done without help. He's kind of was like the Michael Thomas on defense for a while. He was making plays without much help on that D-line. Now he's got, Shelton Rankins, he's got Davenport, he's got a little help, and we're seeing what he's doing with the 4 sacks. More likely, and I'll begin with Justin, Is Cam Jordan close to being a Hall of Fame player?
He's definitely on the road to the Hall of Fame. I don't know, like if his career were to end this year, I don't think so. But the way he's playing, he seems to be improving. I think his goal this year, which is pretty attainable, is 20 sacks. If he hits that, I mean, that would be his best year sack wise. It seems like he's getting better and better. And I think longevity wise, if he can continue to play another 5-6 years, I could see him going in the Hall of Fame.
Shanle, we know Drew Brees is going to be in the Hall of Fame one day. Would you be surprised? I'll maybe turn that question around for you. Would you be surprised if Cam Jordan's a Hall of Famer one day?
Would I be surprised? No. I think right now he's got to win a couple of championships. Championships always go a long way for players. The hard thing about a defensive player, and I think Cam's been one of the best defensive ends the last 5 years in the NFL, he's going to have to get accolades like you see J.J. Watt getting, Von Miller. He's going to have to get a Defensive Player of the Year type accolade, I think, in order for him to get to the Hall of Fame, because he's another one of those players who's just been flying under the radar in terms of dominant defensive players. If you go around the country and you stop in each state and you ask somebody, a football fan, who's the best defensive end in the NFL, I don't think a ton of them are going to give you Cam Jordan's name. And it's a shame because he is, to me, the best defensive end in the NFL.
Is a part of that because this team is dominated by offense?
Absolutely. Absolutely. When you think of the Saints, you think of Sean Payton, you think of Drew Brees, you think of Michael Thomas, you think of Alvin Kamara, and the defense is kind of an afterthought. And it's a shame because I think the defense is actually the strength of this year's team. And Cam, I think Cam was playing really good football even when the Saints were 7-9. And I always said, I can't wait for this team to actually start winning because he'll start to get some of the recognition he deserves. He's very recognized amongst people, media, and guys who play against him. I just think the general fan doesn't have an appreciation for 94 the way they should.
I agree. And the thing I love about Cam Jordan, I'm sure many Saints fans have appreciated this. There's two things that I really like, is that he's a good guy off the field, and he's goofy too. And sometimes I wonder, how does this guy hit quarterbacks? He's so nice. He's so goofy all the time. But if there's a community event, he's always there too. Always there. And this was before he had kids and was married, and he's really, active in the New Orleans community. A lot of players are, but Cam Jordan more than most. All right, our last more likely before we get to predictions. Thanksgiving, we didn't get a chance to kind of weigh in on this, but I'm going to give you some options from the menu. Are you a turkey guy, ham guy, or are you pumpkin pie or off the board? Justin, you go first.
I'm definitely turkey over ham. I won't turn down any ham if it's there, but
right.
I like.
Some are ham haters, man.
Yeah, no, it's weird. I do like turkey. Now it's weird because I seem to be an outlier on this aspect, but most people seem to like pumpkin pie. I love pecan pie. I'll take that over pumpkin any day.
All right. Shanle, what do you think? Oh, you're not done. I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say, I guess of the three, I would pick turkey, but I'm going to go off the board with that pecan pie. That stuff, man, I love that stuff.
No, you can have both. I'm just going for main course and dessert. You don't have to pick of your favorites. Just you like ham, you pick one, and then you pick your favorite Thanksgiving pie.
All right. Well, there we go. Turkey and pecan.
I've been a little under the weather this week. More likely need to get sharpened up for next week. Sorry about that, guys. We'll go to Shanle. Your Thanksgiving meal, what's perfect for your main course and your dessert?
When I think of Thanksgiving, we usually do turkey and ham, but when I think of Thanksgiving, it's turkey followed up with cherry pie. That's simple as that.
Oh. Wow, how about that? I will say this, guys, and it was we can say we won about the city of Atlanta. How they're a soccer town, they're not a football town, which is very true. And we saw in the fourth quarter of that game where the Hooters just took over. I'm sure how many Falcons fans got home and their friends had to tell them about the onside kicks because they certainly weren't in the stadium to see them in person. I will say this about Atlanta, though. The best pregame spread in a press box in the NFL. I saw it last year when they opened the Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Unbelievable. I'm in one line for food. I felt like I was in an upscale food court in a mall. Over there, other guys are getting other stuff. I'm like, I should have been in that line over there. They really stepped their game up Thanksgiving. Everything was good. I'm more ham than turkey. The turkey was fantastic. But what I didn't get, and I'm complimenting you, Atlanta, and keep it going, great Thanksgiving menu. Every side dish you would want, desserts, everything. But at the end of the line, they had hot dogs. I'm thinking, who would eat a hot dog after all of that food? I don't want the turkey. I don't want the ham. I'm going to get me a hot dog, and then I'm good.
Maybe some people didn't have the turkey and ham growing up. Maybe they did a hot dog and it was nostalgic for some of those people. I don't know.
Yes, Shanle, finally we can say something good about Atlanta. Excellent, excellent press box food. Okay, I'm just going to give us all a win last week. I think we all would have predicted the Saints would beat the Falcons. Right, Justin?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Shanle, you would have predicted Saints over Falcons, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, so it stands right now. I am 10-2. You guys are tied at 8-4. Prediction time, score, and team, Justin Thomas.
I have a bad feeling about this game. I just think the way the Saints have been playing, yes, they've been winning, but these are against some really bad teams. Saints are committing a ton of penalties, mistakes, dropped passes. I think last couple of weeks, there's been 3 dropped touchdown passes. I just think the 49ers are going to exploit that. And unless the Saints play a perfect game and probably also get a couple turnovers, I just think the 49ers look like the better team. I think at the end of the day, it's going to be 49ers. I'm going to go with 21, Saints 17.
Wow, how about that? I love the word exploit when breaking down games, too. Scott Shanle, Justin Goes Niners, what say you?
Well, I'm kind of flip-flopped. I think the Superdome is going to be a playoff environment. I think it's going to be absolutely electric. I think that's worth 7 points to the Saints. The 49ers traveled across the country, got beat up by Baltimore. Now they have to fly again to a tough environment to play. I think that's worth another 10 points. You're kind of making me pick the 49ers though if I want to get back into this thing, but I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. I was going to pick the 49ers when we first started this because I want to get back into it, but my heart is going to go over my head. I think the 49ers, their D-line is good. I don't trust Jimmy Garoppolo to go into the Superdome against this Saints defense and score enough points to lead the 49ers to a win. I'm going to say Saints 24, 49ers 21.
Nice. You know what's tough about going last is I kind of have an opinion, and I don't see myself as a follower. But then Justin kind of changes it, and then Shanle kind of changes it, and then I'm a mess by the time you get to me. I really feel like the Saints are a better football team. They just can't make mistakes, and you can say that about a lot of football teams, but not many can still make mistakes and win games the way the Saints have won games recently. I think the Saints cut back on all the mistakes. They make some. They don't turn the ball over. And I like what you said, Shanle, about this the brutal schedule the Niners have had going cross country 2 weeks in a row. I think the Saints win this game. I think it's a great football game. I think we bring back arguably one of the MVPs of this team, Will Lutz, with a game-winning field goal. I think it's 27-24 Saints. Will Lutz with the game winner, and they take control of the NFC. Well, listen, we've touched them all in this podcast. On Twitter, we're getting more and more followers. What's our Twitter handle, Justin?
At Done That Podcast. Yes.
Check us out on Twitter. Give us your feedback. We're on all the platforms. We're on Podbean. We're on iTunes. We're on Stitcher, Spotify, Google+. For Scott Shanle and Justin Thomas, I am merely Mike Nabors. Enjoy the game, Saints fans, and we'll talk to you again next week.